Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Carbonite Bounty BS with me and the nerds here. Glad to see everybody. Really exciting. Definitely discussion this week on Solo. And once again, your Star Wars channel where you get all things from four of our panelists, and you don't have to worry about these weird videos of people buying milk crates and trying to do ridiculous challenges. So, welcome here, guys. No TikTok videos on milk crates. So yeah, glad everybody can join us tonight for a great discussion on the Solo movie. But yeah, weird one. Maybe I'm late. Maybe I'm getting older, but just started seeing this craze about the milk crate thing, and I was
you're not late. It's a stupid phenomenon. And,
it's been out there for a while. So
concussions and.
Well, I mean, when I'm seeing it, I'm like, a milk crate, and the people that are doing these challenges, they're not like, thin or skinny. They're like 200-300 pounds. I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. This outcome is not going to work for you. But hey,
gravity is not your friend.
Right. So definitely they could have, the milk crate challenges. So we need to do a lightsaber challenge on that. I didn't see any Star Wars ones. Somebody usually does cosplay. So we're our Star Wars fans out there. Maybe somebody can send us something on the Facebook
Saber
page
challenge. Just put it out there. Saber challenge.
Saber challenge. Try to climb a milk crate with a saber fight.
They ought to get that Star Wars kid from 20 years ago. See if he wants to jump up there with his
you mean Broom Boy?
Broom Boy, yeah, Broom Boy. Spinning around.
Broom Boy. Yeah, whatever happened to him? But that's another story for another day, right?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this: the milk crate challenge has got to be doing pretty good because MTV is just ridiculousness now, and that is a thing that is just directly designed to be showed on ridiculousness. Like for next year, it's like it's ridiculousness has become a thing where it's creating and generating its own content as it goes along. It's terrifying to me.
Yeah. Kind of like TikTok live basically is what it is now. So
very
great.
Scary.
But yeah, guys, just kind of get into this week's episode. We all watched Solo again, and very interested. Before we came on air, as we usually do our uncut stuff, which will probably release to some of you guys here at some point. But some interesting points. Definitely going over the Clone Wars and doing a lot of Bad Batch opens a few of our eyes as far as how we view things. So just kind of starting it off, I know Hitch was a big kind of maybe guy who flipped his opinion on it. Just give us your early review on that movie so far, Hitch.
So after
the talk about what you thought about before.
Yeah.
Right.
So my stuff when this came out, we were already doing the show. So I think there's tape, at least for me and DP, maybe even for Ken. I think you might have been on that too. Mm-hmm. Where I think I gave it a B+, I'm pretty sure. And I said it was good, but it was hard for me to get past the fact that it wasn't Harrison Ford being Han Solo. It was tough. And one of the things that the recent new material from Star Wars has done is it really made it so that I like this movie a lot more. Between The Mandalorian and the call-ins there, and the stuff from the Clone Wars, it's paying off. I think this was a much more interesting movie. The Pikes actually showed up on film. Cool, right? Very interested to remember how they were portrayed. I liked how they broadened the depth of what life is like with the Empire. It's nice after seeing where they're starting out in Bad Batch, how their hand's just going to get heavier and heavier and heavier, right? So to see that progression is really interesting. And this time, I was not distracted by the fact that it was Alden Ehrenreich instead of Harrison Ford playing Han Solo. I think maybe this is one of those movies where upon repeat viewing, it will increase in quality in our estimation because it is a well-constructed movie.
Yeah, I agree. And watching it again, I just watched it this afternoon. I think that actor studied Harrison. I mean, I feel it. He studied his just like when Ewan McGregor took over the Kenobi role. They studied the master. They studied the patter, the timing, the emotion, the emphasis. Just that scene. Okay, so there's a scene where Han and Chewie are on that. They're on a gangplank. They're on some sort of a platform of some sort, and they're having actually Han and Chewie banter. This is where Chewie tells him his name, and he's like, "No, I need something shorter."
Right.
That could have been Harrison Ford saying those lines. I mean, it was perfect. And to me, I'm a fanboy. I'm a sucker for all the pandering that they do. That was a great scene for me. And then the whole Lando thing with the Millennium Falcon and seeing it for the first time, and Jesus Christ, what a great, I mean, I actually have to, if there was like a higher number than 10, I would have to give it something.
So we're back to the realm of all 10 Ken. That's his name, right? All 10 Ken.
I mean,
all 10 Ken is back.
This film had so much great stuff in it, and just even the scene where Han is given Kira all this trouble about her capes, and then he goes in for the kill with that kiss. I mean, that was absolutely Harrison and Fisher to the nth degree. I mean, they really they injected the old Star Wars feel back into things for me. I mean, it was. I mean, I could watch it again and again and again. It's great. So much good stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was a when I originally seen it in the theaters, I think on our last podcast, Hitch, I told you I fell asleep. and woke back up, and okay, it was like some more stuff going on. It took me to see the Clone Wars and to start this whole podcast journey with you guys to really get the appreciation of how vast this world is. We're at the point where, the Galactic Empire is taking over, and, we're in like the sort of like the downwards, the tone is off, the mood is off, the what we've seen in like the Bad Batch, we've seen like, dread, greed, just doom and gloom and everything, in the Bad Batch. This is telling like a different side of the story. It's the same story, same everything that's going on. You still got like, heists and stuff going on, chaos and stuff going all around. But you got Han, who's really kind of optimistic about his journey, and he's the lighthearted. He's that one we needed at this point in our journey, at the Carbonite Bounty BS journey, to lighten this whole thing up. It was a really good thing to really see this world sort of lighten up, even with all the stuff that was going on, and really, bring back like that true Star Wars feel of what I've seen in like the like New Hope and like Return of the Jedi and stuff like that and everything. I loved Lando. he was just that's
perfect.
He was perfect, as Lando. I loved the L3 and her back and forth with Lando and everything, and then like the one scene where her and Kieran,
in the cockpit,
the cockpit and everything, and Kieran was just asking like, well, how would that work? Talking about works. Lando loves me and everything, but I don't have any type of feelings for him. That just wouldn't work. And then she was just like, well, how would that work? That was a really decent scene when the Millennium Falcon showed up. I was like, yep, I know that reference right there. So that was good. The whole the Kessel Run with the main event of the story and everything, that was phenomenal as far as like the whole like the visual visualization of that, and really displaying how much Han is. He just doesn't care. I mean, he believes that he's going to get the job done, and believes he's just going to get through like through his fun. Just that confident in himself being a pilot. You just ride for this guy throughout like the whole story. I'm not even thinking as him say. I'm not even thinking about Harrison Ford. I'm thinking about this guy and his journey. He's for right now. Harrison Ford was who he was back then, and he's still a great Han Solo. But people age, and they age out of the role and everything. This is a good flashback story with a great actor playing with a good actor. I'm not saying great, with a good actor playing a great character. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything you guys said as well. I felt like the way this movie was shot, because I'm gonna be honest, me being the guy who watches everything Star Wars early, when I read the reviews on this, I actually didn't watch this movie for a couple weeks. When I heard it being slammed and people said it was bad, I'm like, look, I'm not seeing this. I'll wait till this goes to DVD. Like,
Uh-oh.
no chance. I'm gonna watch this. I honestly was mad that I waited because when I seen it and then watching this again, I'm like, where is the hate at? This is a great movie. The actors were, I mean, and I guess I don't know if Donald Glover would be considered A-list, but I mean, I thought they had a great cast, the movie, the flow of it, and to be honest, this looked like it was on like 70 millimeter. This made me feel like 4, 5, and 6. So the way they shot this, it was like not this new digital film that you see. This really looked like it was shot with traditional cameras. It didn't look super CGI to me, if that's even a word, but it didn't look really CGI'd. I just thought the movie was great as a whole. Kind of, and we'll progress to this, when we see other characters who this will be the first time that we found out he's alive outside of an animated season. So I thought the way they tied this together was great, but leading into a really interesting point, I know we talked about in DP has said is Han's journey. The only thing I would question Disney on, and I've always said this, I've discussed this with friends, outside of this realm, like, just talking about the character. I really think the Han Solo movie, after this young Han, we'll call him, when he transforms kind of to this kind of not really bitter person, but more of a scoundrel per se,
Grizzle.
I would like to see Disney take a chance and make a rated R movie. I mean, it's Star Wars. I think we see, and not just because of his sexual kind of content and how he's a ladies' man and how he is, but I really think they should really take a chance on the character of Han Solo and see, because I mean, this is where we've seen how he felt when he lost his first girlfriend, kind of emotionally. He's making this turn before he meets Leia to this kind of player, kind of he's a scoundrel. He's spice running. He's kind of like, I don't know, like your neighborhood kind of, drug dealer maybe. He goes on a dark path for a while. So, it's, I'd like to see him take a chance on this second Solo movie and make it a lot more dark character to kind of show that side of Han before he met and, kind of settled down, kind of like your guy who's, rebellious in his early 20s maybe, to he meets that one that settles him down. But, I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on that. I would like to see him take a chance.
Yeah, that'd be interesting if Disney would up the ante and go into that R rating. And so what would motivate them to do that? Like they've got these
story, I think, yeah.
Stories. Yeah, the story, right? So Han has to meet Boba Fett at some point.
Right.
So that could be a huge dig into that. I mean, because that's going to push Han over the edge because Boba Fett is always a trigger for him, in the story that we know. So let's see that. Let's see what happens and pushes Han into that darker level.
Right.
That would be a great maybe a great catalyst for Disney.
I want to be put on the record. I'm totally against any R-rated Star Wars stuff. Don't ever go there. This is not the type of universe where you just do that.
Are you serious?
I'm all for a mature story, but not.
Oh no.
So T. Mitch, what do you mean by R rating? Like, what are you feeling is the
content?
Yeah,
well, the content, maybe more the language. I mean, it's not even. I guess like
they say Nerf herder in episode 5.
Yeah,
Nerf herder is pretty.
Yeah.
What do you want from them? I mean, they say it.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe some blood and gore, and obviously people think about because when everybody sees rated R, they think of sexual content, and that necessarily.
I was like, you cannot have Han Solo hanging dong in a galaxy far, far away. Disney would never allow that to happen.
Not like that. I'm just more of a dark theme kind of, or like Deadpool is minus the bedroom scene. And you got to think Deadpool from the content, not from Ryan Reynolds and those like jokes and stuff he did. But I mean, the movie was pretty gory. It was different. But I just think that they need to take a chance on the movie because I mean, if you read his story in the EU, I mean, he was a pretty nasty guy. Like he was pretty dirty.
You could take chances on a more mature story. It doesn't necessarily need to be rated R for it to function as like a more more mature, darker story. You know.
Yeah, but to your point though, the audience who views Han Solo is us, which will be able to watch it because you're looking at it from a neutral spot, a neutral kind of a casual, outlook. I don't think the kids will still, even at this point, will react to the character like we will. So, as a viewing audience, I think that audience will be more receptive to a rated R movie because it's going to be us watching it. Like
what were the ratings on the sequel trilogies? Was it PG-13 or was it PG?
PG-13.
PG-13 for episode 9 for sure.
Okay. Stick with that. I mean, you stick with that and just don't Disney it out. Just keep it mature. You can have a strong PG-13 movie without having a bro. I just think it's something sacred, and it's just my opinion. I am coming from the casual, viewer. It's just something sacred to me about the Star Wars universe, not having to go that extreme route. I could see stories because in reality, I mean, you're going to have blood and you're going to have gore, when you're talking about these, weapon type and destruction and violent situations. But I think it's just something sacred about this particular universe, not going that route, even to please us, mature fans or whatever.
So can I ask you an interesting, to play devil's advocate question then?
Mm-hmm.
So then does that flip you're doing that based on a family concept, right?
I'm just based on what I've seen so far about this whole universe. I mean,
yeah, but you find it like something that a family should be able to share together, right?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying that I don't think I would. It would take me out of it a bit if the story has to be really good. It has to be really good in order for it to really to justify it. Actually, a Star Wars story carrying an R rating, that's an extreme concept. So
and to be some gritty, But here's the thing. Now let me pitch something else because I think I'm with you, DP. If we're talking about like episode 10 rated R, I'm out, right? Like,
correct.
But like, what if I sold you a Bad Batch movie that was rated R? What if I pitched it to you and I said it's just gritty, realistic. It's set. Han Solo shows up. Han Solo shows up
in the middle of the Bad Batch, and you've got violence, and you've got a lot of like torture, and
But there's torture in Star Wars. There's already torture. Yeah. Like that's the thing. It's like all this stuff's there. Like,
it's already there. It's already there. We're just gonna up it a little bit.
I can dig it, Hitch. I can dig it. You give me a Bad Batch R-rated movie, I think the fans will. Yeah. Okay. All right. You got me. You sold me.
You flipped already.
I'm flipped already.
Pancake. It's a pancake already. You flipped already. Flipped him right over. Pancaked him. No, I just, I don't know. I come from that. I mean, I kind of get in, like what Ken was saying, when people say that they don't want to do this or that, our ratings because of like, it's a family concept. I get it. But then you go back to the point we talked about last week. If everybody's about family, then why does it cost $8,000 to go to Galactus Car Cruiser? That's not about family. So you can't have it both ways, whether it's a movie studio or not, it's the same, right? So we talk about a rating because of tradition. I mean, you're breaking up a family now because a family can't even afford to enjoy themselves and live in Star Wars anymore.
I can. Okay, so with that being said, because you definitely pancaked me, Hitch sold me. He sold me. He did a better job selling the concept than you did, T. Mitch.
What if it's rated R, but it's just because of L3 jokes? Like she just gets really grimy.
Really
and she's
dirty.
Just like, well, how there's the problem,
and then
it just goes on. There's this uncomfortable silence on the bridge.
Lando's movie would be R-rated for sure. He's nasty.
Oh man, I can see that.
Yeah, he's nasty.
Yeah, Lando's the R-rated character for sure.
Oh man, I can see that. Oh.
I would watch that too. That's 2, right? So I would watch a Bad Batch R-rated for that reason. I would watch whatever Lando's getting up to. I'm just curious. I just want to see it now. You know what I mean? I would buy that book he's writing in this movie. I would buy that book for sure.
Calrissian. They just need to do that.
Yeah, he's wild. I mean, he's a wild character.
Oh man!
I think the funny part, and fast forward it all the way when we even had seen it in episode 9, like kind of like this little sly jokes he was doing. I was just like, man, this guy. Billy D, man, it was hilarious when he was doing the banter with Leia and stuff. I'm like, man, this guy still doesn't care.
Dig it. I can dig it.
Ultimate ladies, man.
Yeah, this movie was a I can still see points in parts of the movie where I wouldn't say that it should be hate towards it or whatever, but it wasn't the best Star Wars movie. So it's a grant that I'm still going back to when it came out. It came out way too soon. From the Last Jedi. Yeah, the Last Jedi. Yeah, it came out way too soon, from that movie. But just standing alone, you get the sort of sense and feel of what Rogue One tried to accomplish and what the Clone Wars and Bad Batch and probably what we're going to see in Rebels. Just telling stories outside of the Skywalker saga. And depending on the world itself, the world building itself to carry, because really Star Wars is about the world. As far as I'm looking at it, it's about the world in itself, and it's so many stories that you could tell within a galaxy. And just like I was saying before, I'm seeing in this iteration with this movie the lightheartedness of the darkness that's present in this galaxy. I would have never gotten that had I not seen like the Clone Wars and Bad Batch. It would just seem to me everything that's happening on the peripherals is just a joke. When if you're watching Solo without any of that context and everything. Now you're seeing things in like oh man, this is some heavy stuff going on in this galaxy, and this one guy is trying to he's just trying to make it. He's just trying to do his thing and keep his head above water. And he's just being optimistic on every single end. I'm like, I can appreciate that where I didn't appreciate it when I first seen it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the best word for Han is optimism. I mean, because every single conflict that he comes in. So the first conflict was okay. They lost the freight. They lost the. What the hell was that called? The energy.
Coaxium?
Yeah, the coaxium. They lost it, gone. Now they're dead, right? Because the mafia are like, you didn't bring us the prize, we're gonna kill you. What does he say to Beckett? He's like, yeah, I'll come with you. We're gonna fix this. He's like totally like so optimistic about the whole thing. Where we're thinking, yeah, right. You're walking into a death trap. Mm-hmm. And look what happened. It all worked out.
That's what he said.
Tell me the odds.
He worked it out. Don't tell me the odds. Exactly. He's like, hey, we got this. Don't worry about it. Beckett's like, who is this kid? And even Voss is like, this guy's got potential. I mean, he's overlooking every obstacle that could possibly come down the pike. Haha, reference. And, I mean, he's got everything. He's like one of us just dumped into this battle. How would we act? We'd be the same way. We want to be as optimistic as possible. Our lives are filled with conflict and things that we have to fight through. So what are you going to do? Get bogged down in this is terrible. Oh, I'll never get through this. No, you got to push through.
Yeah.
Be positive.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the right idea.
He's definitely a positive figure, for everybody in the movie, because he definitely affects everybody in a certain type of way, and they if it wasn't for the fact that they turned on him in there, it was a great crew. I like Woody Harrelson. I liked his role and everything. My one guy who ended up dying in the sort of like towards the beginning, when they did the train, the little
pilot. Yeah, the pilot.
Yeah. I wanted to see more of that guy and everything.
That's Favreau. He's busy. Yeah. He's busy with Star Wars now.
That's like a Maz. That was a Maz creature, right?
Yeah,
like Maz, like that. Who's that Wookiee? Wasn't that the same life form
as
Maz?
Maz. I don't know.
Not sure.
I think there's some relation because they were similarly featured and kind of interesting, like kind of bossy, kind of like I'm more than you think I am, But I'm a similar character.
Oh man, I'm just drew a blank. I think maybe they could be the same, but I think he's more like Dex. He reminds me more of the Dex and that crazy general from the Slukamai trilogy. Reminds me of those guys, but I don't know. He's got a bunch of arms though, and no extra lives.
Died. I mean, I felt bad that guy died. I mean,
he might as well had a picture in his wallet of a boat that says "Live forever." Like, I'm retiring after this job. It's the last job.
And he was the first one to say, "Man, you're a pretty good pilot." Because what does Han say? I'm a great pilot, and that's the whole thing. Like Luke's like, "I'm not such a bad pilot," and Han's like, "Really? I'm a better pilot than anybody in this entire saga."
Even force sensitive people that know what's about to happen, I'm better, and he is. He reads as better in all the literature, which is perhaps plot armor, because they're not allowed to kill off Han Solo in some Splinter of the Mind's Eye BS.
Exactly.
They can't do that. So he's never gonna die. So of course he's OP as far as his skill. But have you guys ever? This is something that's interesting, and I kind of picked up on it. Have you ever had like an idea that you could do something preternaturally? You know what I mean? Like he feels like I can fly. I'm a pilot. I can do it. I know I can do it. And then he can't. You know what I mean? Like it's a rare thing that you have that sort of confidence, and then it pays off, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like,
you know who has that?
Like a Michael Jordan.
Little kids. They think they can do anything, but they can't. They have this thing. Like they haven't experienced enough. They think they can accomplish anything. They try and do it and they fail. But they don't care. They move on. They do the next thing.
But Hitch is saying that, okay, you have this thing in you and you believe you can do it, and all of a sudden you can actually do that. You know?
I mean, that would be like you're like a prodigy child. Look at these gymnasts. I think there was a kid on the X Games who was 9 who won is somebody in the Olympics who was like 12 or something, won a gold medal. Like that's not taught. That's like he's saying that's something that's like innate. He said, "I'm a skateboard when I start walking," and the kid won a gold medal at age 12 or something. Like that's one of those things you can't measure that. There's no like.
Yeah.
He hasn't been midichlorians, obviously.
Yeah. Like if you go back to like Jordan documentaries or read up on the guy and everything, he grew up being in competition with his brother who was better than him back then and everything. But he was just so competitive and just believed that, okay, he can overcome whatever deficiency that he couldn't beat with his brother. People were telling him that he couldn't do things because of his size, and he wasn't ever going to be as good as certain things. The guy just kept pushing him through. And what did he become? He became like the greatest, the GOAT, as they say of that time and everything, because he knew. Yeah. He knew.
It's very similar to Michael Jackson's story. I mean, that's the same way.
Yeah. And anybody who
he wasn't even supposed to sing. And by the way, there can be no Michael Jackson hate with me. So that's another side story. I'm just like the biggest fan. I'll always be. But
Michael Jackson was a genius.
The greatest.
He would have been a Jedi master.
Jordan would have been a Jedi master too. Yeah.
If there was a Jedi master.
But if Michael Jackson had been in the Jedi Order, Palpatine would have just scandaled them out. He wouldn't have had to do anything.
Yeah. He would have danced in the death.
I have discovered horrible things in the temple.
Yeah.
He's doing things at this camp, this parade, and all these horses. What is he doing?
Keep away from the
Yeah, no younglings, right? Yeah.
Keep away
Younglings.
Oh, y'all.
At least they'd have carnival rides in Coruscant, right? Neverland would have been on Neverland's Coruscant. That's what I'm dubbing it.
Why is the unicorn horn there?
No.
Goodness gracious.
Oh, Palpatine.
He's my guy, yeah. I mean, there's a backhanded Palpatine references though, even in this, because remember, this is where this is his master plan for Maul after he shocks him. This is the plan he wants him to run out, and this is him, as you said, DP, collecting that money to basically fund, the new empire,
Why?
So yeah.
Why? Because organized crime is functioning as an arm of the government. And what Palpatine wants to do is he wants to move these resources around so that he can just come in and have an off the books army do things that he doesn't have to claim. That's the whole point of running these things for organized crime. You see a lot of this stuff happens in authoritarian cultures because what organized crime gives you is a 10 out of 10, and there is no higher number than that, but a 10 out of 10 in loyalty. Well, they'll do whatever you say. And governmentals can't do that because people usually won't do bad things right away when you tell them to do them, right? So this is all part of Palpatine's overall plan. And you see the Empire is, again, in its string of W's, right? This is the Empire at its peak, the most powerful. No one's even taking any, like, there's no cracks showing in the Empire right now. Everything's clicking along. You know, they have the recruiting stuff out. The blockchain stuff's working. Travel's restricted. People are trapped at different places. Squalor is increasing, which I know is a big thing. But look, conditions on the ground here, I think 6 or 7 years into Palpatine's reign, are deteriorating a little bit. You know, we talk about the politics of Palpatine's coup and it being, you know, portrayed by Palpatine as a proletarian takeover, a takeover of the people. And here we see very plainly the Palpatine and his government do not care about you know, the underclass of people in the galaxy. They don't give it. They don't care.
Right.
You know, we see that on display, and so it's interesting to see, you know, how there's a little bit of a false promise in the Empire, which I'm a little surprised of. You know what I mean? I didn't think that there was ever any sort of like wool over the eyes in the galaxy far, far away, but there was. Wow.
I mean that's an interesting point when you talk about classes and whatnot, because think about it, he left the lower class really to the Hutts. You know, that was I really expected him to have like a bigger presence in the spice mines, kind of the galactic drug game, if you will, because that was easy money. So for him to say, I don't really care about that, because that's easy money for him to build the Empire faster, he didn't worry about that. He worried about the higher class people and bigger things, and left that to the Hutts and really a lot of the other scoundrels that kind of manage that. And to my knowledge, he really didn't even go after the Hutts or anything. That was like lower class to him. He didn't focus on that. He left it to them to kind of manage. So that's, that's like a drawback on me that I thought like is maybe a fault of Palpatine, to maybe that's like a biggest piece of the pie that he could have maybe capitalized on that he turned his head to, kind of turned his shoulder to.
But black markets, they exist to handle all the extra legal commerce, right? And the Empire, the Emperor, is already in charge of all the legal commerce.
Right.
So by being in charge of the black market, the Emperor is eliminating any competition to himself for authority, period. There will be no eroding of the norms from corruption at all, because the corrupt system that would replace the Empire is run by Palpatine.
Right.
So that system will not overthrow Palpatine.
Correct.
He's in pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and also the higher up you are, the less sensitive you are to small little nuances in the structure, right? So he's looking at very few things. How many systems do I have control of, and where are my major fleets deployed? And so he's not looking at the little tiny things, and that's how the rebellion gets in.
Yeah, those are the cracks that Hitch was talking about.
Right, and that's how they get in, because you're not looking at the small little changes, little disturbances in the Force that you should be, because you're too big. You're like looking at this huge and that's why you need to have good people in all levels to really take a look at things in a structured way. And that was probably the biggest downfall of the galactic empires. They weren't looking at how the mafia was being turned, because that's the thing. You get into these small little cracks. I can make a deal with you, T. Mitch, right? I can make a deal with you. Hey, I'll give you R-rated Disney movies. You give me your planet.
Right.
You give me control of your planet. You let me use it as a landing zone or an LZ. I'm gonna refuel my ships there. I'm gonna feed my troops. And here's all these great videos you can watch in the middle of the night, and you're gonna love these things. And you're like, yeah, cool. Palpatine didn't even see that.
Right.
We just went R-rated right there.
You did. You slid right in.
See? When the content was there, we were keeping in theme of everything. We just went R because we dug deep.
We dug deep. But isn't the same? Isn't the flip of that what made the Republic go down? It's the same. You're not paying attention to like the cracks and everything.
Yeah.
And things are just bubbling up. So it's sort of like cyclical in a way. Except you don't have like this one entity trying to create like an authoritarian type of control and stuff, but it's still the same concept.
Yep. It's just
but there's a big
power. Yeah,
But there's a big difference between the sort of the sort of soft corruption of the Republic, which is sort of a naturally occurring feature of governance there, a lack of oversight, and the graft of the Empire, right? The graft of it. I mean, the Empire is wholly ordered to increase the power and wealth of Sheev Palpatine. That's all it is for. That's what it exists to do, and the only thing that it ever does. And to put into perspective, like we talk about wealth inequality in our time is a story, and the veracity of why that is, or if it should be, is its own conversation that I don't really want to get into. But to use an example from human history, in the Roman Empire versus the Roman Republic, the Roman Republic had a lot of problems that were caused because a small number of people were getting a hold of a big piece of the money, right? And so there were these huge estates, and yeoman farmers were getting kicked off their farms, and things were consolidating. So there was a lot of issues that was causing. Well, Augustus, the Roman emperor, when he died, he owned half of all the money in circulation. Half. So that is the difference, is that there is a purpose to the corruption of the empire, and that is to self-deal to the emperor. It is a feature, not a bug, of all authoritarian systems, because if you allow monetary power centers to exist, they will eventually attempt to become political power centers. There's no political mechanism to prevent that from happening.
Right.
So Palpatine will not let that happen. And it's from a Machiavellian political philosophy, like power perspective, this is probably the correct chess move to make. Although we should mention, very immoral, very wrong to do those things.
But it's too big, right? You can't take over everything. You can't just.
That's the fall. What do you want to call it? The failure of power and everything. I mean, you're so consumed with it. I mean, you see it in a cartoon type of takeover of movie, in movies and everything, stories and stuff. They're trying to the takeover of power and stuff, but it's only so you can't control all the people. You could control like a lot of and you can only do it in a short amount of time or a certain period of time. It can't be something that lasts forever. So it sort of gives you a question why people seek it, and if they do end up getting it, what is like is it a satisfactory motivation for the people to actually that actually have it? And I know Hitch is probably thinking about certain things, but it's power is an interesting thing in I guess the wrong hands, and to really try to grab hold of it is a sort of thing that you want, but when you actually have it, is it worth it?
Yeah, and I think that's where the empire started to fail. Is if you're going to control people, you've got to give them something. You have to give them something to believe in. You got to give them some sort of value.
You got to give them something, because if they're giving all this power to you, they still want to survive and live and be happy. Right. And, so you got to give them something back.
So if they're not seeing the value of the power that you're giving them, they're going to start to look elsewhere, which leads us back to our R rating, because if you're not getting what you need, you're going to look elsewhere. Right?
It's called Lando.
Yeah, let's call Lando. Let's just call Lando Calrissian, and he's going to tell you where you need to look for these things that are going to satisfy you. He's going to find it for you.
So political revolution usually can't happen in a time of plenty. It's harder to happen when there's not a crisis. It's the reason that there was so much political revolution in and around the end of World War I. In the early 20th century, because there were so many crisis points and a lot of failure. There was a lot of stuff that happened. They got World War I and a pandemic that was like 10 times worse than the one we have all at once.
At the end of World War I, yeah.
Right. So
speak on it.
So they turned crisis got turned up to 11, and it's what allowed the tyrannical philosophies like authoritarianism, Nazism, and communism to sort of take root, because they sort of say, well, we have an urgent situation we need to deal with. The niceties of right and wrong need to be dispensed with, and they're okay with that. That's what those philosophies do. And Palpatine has promised that, but Palpatine has sold his takeover of the government as legitimate, meaning to actually do the things he says and put the power back toward improving the station of the lives of the citizens of the Republic, which is the legitimate exercise of the political power, and has instead replaced that end with the protection and aggrandizement of himself, of Palpatine, right? And that perversion is what will eventually cause the government to fall, because a government that does not act with moral authority can develop no moral authority. And if a government doesn't have moral authority, there is no difference between taxation and theft.
Right.
And so people eventually get tired of that. There's a lot of obviously there's a lot of factors to that. How heavy-handed is the government? And we know the Empire is 100 out of 100. They'll hammer hit you with a hammer. So, it took
another hammer behind them.
Right. So it took until they started really swinging the hammers, right? And then with Alderaan, now all of a sudden, the galaxy realizes they're in something, and so there's a significant resistance to Palpatine. But it's interesting that we see the turn here, right? If the Emperor said, "Give me power and I will help you," then we see here at the 7 years, right, that was a hollow promise, which is going to cause problems in the underclass, as we said.
Right.
So we should see some revolutionary, fervor, and we should see some anti-government sentiment begin to start popping up, around the time of Solo, where people start getting tired of the heavy-handed,
and fighting back.
Exactly. And why are we building so many ships if there's no war? Like these shipyard planets like Corellia, we see them building Star Destroyers, and on Corellia at the beginning of this, you see them pulling the bridge spire up to a Star Destroyer. Yep. Why are they building so many Star Destroyers? Who are they fighting? Why do they need so many? Especially if they just I get you got to decommission the clones and cycle them through with, real conscript soldiers and stuff, but the equipment didn't suddenly explode or didn't suddenly disintegrate. Right. So why do you need to start so much of a military presence if you're not going to fight any exterior threat?
Which you may find is the reason for Han's optimism. His blind optimism in a way. He may not be aware of everything that's going on, but he sees cracks in the matrix, if you want to call it. So he's able to navigate about in his world with a little bit of optimism. Well, this is not as bad as it could be, or if he was to experience what we seen in like the Bad Batch and Clone Wars, like the fall and everything, Han probably wouldn't be this optimistic. We're at a point right now to where he could have this development of optimism based on his time in this world.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, so
he's a direct result of what's going on at that point in time.
As we discuss this movie more, and I'm just kind of thinking through my mind some things that really excited me in the movie, and to see where they kind of took it, from a Disney Star Wars perspective. So I did like how the movie started with the speeder chase scene.
Yeah,
it looked like a cleaner scene of the original. The Anakin's pod race. So I like how they've taken things, as we said, from previous movies. They sprinkled them or they cleaned them up. So it just shows how not only is it just Star Wars, but it seems like Disney, and it's even in other aspects, whether it be Marvel, it seems like they have a really good track record of maybe backlash or something that people didn't feel was the best, and cleaning that up and kind of regurgitating it into maybe another form of media, but cleaning that up a lot more. And I've noticed that, Star Wars, even with the Mandalorian we've covered, Bad Batch, and these animated series, there's a lot more stuff that we've seen. It seems like it's, as the seasons go on, they rectify a lot of issues or plot points that we thought were issues. So I really appreciate that, from that perspective.
Well, with that being said, I think I'm going to have some questions by the time we get to A New Hope and Return of the Jedi.
Don't forget Empire. Empire Strikes Back is the greatest.
He's not going to have any questions about Empire. Everyone,
I shouldn't have
nobody
said
has any questions about that one.
A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, not Return of the Jedi, and those two movies. It's going to be some questions there and some backfilling of story, plot, and everything. Now that I'm going to be like, okay, this is happening either too quickly or it needs a lot more context, which I think is where the books and like EU stuff like fills it in and all that stuff. But I the backfilling that Dave Filoni is doing for a lot of this stuff was seeing the to when is it's almost like when is his stories going to overlap like A New Hope, to that level.
And that's what I was getting at, and that's why I think they're going to rewrite 7, 8, and 9, because I think realistically, and we've all talked about it, like that's my big thing. The Luke Skywalker series is coming. I don't know. I mean, they're not going to do a young Luke, probably. So it would have to be either between 5 and 6, but more than likely people want to know between 6 and 7. So what drives him, and we discussed it, is it the loss of Mara Jade, which is a big character that's been out there. And as you know, when Disney hear these names, like the Ahsoka Tano thing, it comes. So I'm more than likely we will see either Mara Jade or some kind of love loss that not only, was the loss of his father and everything that happened, but something drove him other than Palpatine into exile. So I think we'll see that, the Luke series, to kind of fill in the backside of Return of the Jedi. But I'm with you, DP. I've always been a giant fan of Star Wars since a kid, but I did think that kind of like we saw the Clone Wars, like, Empire Strikes Back could have been a two-parter because there's some context missing there. So maybe Filoni does go in and try to fill in something, maybe be an animated series. I don't think they'll do a live action between that, but yeah, I mean, when we get to those again, I'd like to see that. And, it ties into this next point. There's already murmurs of a Solo 2 coming out that kind of would lead up to, that kind of, Tatooine. We might get to Tatooine with a young Luke, or maybe we'll see, because we have Obi-Wan coming out, so maybe that'll butt up. And as we see, I mean, all these things are mashing up to maybe that kind of Thrawn type, maybe that's like the kind of head villain of this whole first phase of this Filoni-verse. So all this stuff is like a chain link. It's linking up, or like we said, like he's knitting a blanket, crocheting a blanket up. I mean, it's all these stories are leading up to something big.
Yeah,
it's just a lot more slower than the Marvel universe would be.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a different type of universe,
right?
Rules and stuff. As much as you want to see the 7, 8, 9 rewritten, I just see, because of Palpatine's return in like the 9th episode, I see some backfilling already being done, with Grogu and the experiments and all that stuff going on, just paying off as a reason to why that happened. When him all of a sudden just appearing out of just nowhere and everything. It will give a lot of reason and context, leaving those movies in place and backfilling, some of those stories. Now, is that a satisfying way to tell a universal story? I don't know. but it is, the universe is what it is, and it has its fans, and it has its, rules and stuff. And what I'm just seeing right now coming from the outside in, as I see that Star Wars is this type of universe where you have everything in place and bits and pieces throughout time are being told to backfill stuff to make certain other parts make sense. But still, you're not, it's not like the Marvel universe where everything is up in the air where it could just go anywhere. You don't have multi-universes. You just have one Star Wars universe, and that's it.
Yeah,
not necessarily.
Connect. It
Not
all
necessarily. You haven't seen Rebels yet, so I would hold on that. Hold off on that. You have not seen Rebels yet, so hold off on that.
You sweet summer child.
Please hold off. Please hold off on that. But finishing.
DP, you mentioned something, and this is one criticism that I had about this movie while we were watching it today. While my wife and I were watching it today, and it was that this movie seems like it would have been a way better miniseries, and to the point where this plot seems like it would have been way better as a series of short stories rather than as one big overall story. Right. I wanted more time with Beckett. I want more time with that crew to exist. I feel like that could have been a whole one season of the show. It's telling to me that at the end of the day, my main negative point is structure type. And if that's the case, that's something that just says that if they had to put an origin story on this, because it's like the Thor of Han Solo. You have to show how he became Han Solo. I think if we see Solo 2, it can focus on a more incremental period. It can show us one heist, so to speak, from start to end, and without having to be labyrinthine and show me the beginning. Just show me Han being cynical. Han, being that guy he is at the beginning of episode 4. Show me that. And that's going to make me happy.
Right.
They will. They'll do that.
Yeah, I hope so.
They just heard you. They'll do it.
They always do it.
In closing this discussion off on the Han Solo movie, what did you guys think about the Darth Maul drop? I mean, we kind of knew about it, I guess, watching it. But if we didn't watch it, DP? What would you think about it? I was shocked when I seen it, to be honest. I was like, what?
When I first seen it, like in the show and everything, I was like, one of my favorite parts. Oh, Darth Maul is back and he has these metal legs. What the heck happened there? And then we got like the Clone Wars. I'm like, okay, this is how it happened. Oh man, so it tied things up so smooth. I was happy, just coming back around and getting more context of where Maul is at this point in like the timeline and everything. I want to see the story of Kieran and Maul, working more, with each other and stuff. I want to see a little bit more of that story. And it just created like a thing to where you have something that doesn't necessarily have to do with Solo. Maybe it's going to happen in the Solo 2 or whatever, but they have to tell that story at some point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, very interesting. It's just funny when we every time, and this is why I love doing Carbon Light Bounty BS with you guys. Like my gears are always spinning in my head, and like the more we discuss things, like the more things kind of I guess I try to put my mind in Filoni's mind and try to line things up, which will never do. But the more we discuss this, kind of how things lay up, it would make perfect sense that Bad Batch came out right, and as we watch the finale. They showed all them cloning tanks, right, in different sizes. So we're all assuming that Grogu is a descendant of Yoda's species, right? Once again, there were different size cloning tanks. So you see where this is going?
Interesting.
And then we talk about in The Mandalorian towards the end of it now that they've already kind of mastered it. And then they have the child back. So they already knew about the child, right? How do they know about it? The species lives for how long? So it's it's starting to add up to me. I'm thinking that Grogu's a clone of Yoda. To be honest, it's not like him and Yaddle's. Yaddle was a
Yaddle was the wife.
Yeah. So I'm thinking Grogu is a Yoda clone.
That'd be interesting.
You would have had to have been a
that would be the R. That would be.
But who can fake? I'm over here thinking that blockchain code or that crypto code they have for everybody has his birth date as being 25 years before or 15 years before Phantom Menace.
Right.
But who could fake that? And the answer is the Emperor. Because they make them, so they can easily fake that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's in play for sure.
So yeah, I think that's going to be in play for sure moving forward with the whole Grogu story.
A much better story than just him going back to his people and everything.
That's going to be
I'm very interested if it goes that way. Now I can't get that, put that into like head canon where if that doesn't happen, I'll be disappointed. You got to be careful about that because what us fans get, especially when we get into these theories, we get things that happen in our head and want it to go a certain direction, and when it doesn't happen that way, we get
mad.
Yeah,
that's why we're going to nerd. That's why we're going to nerd court over stories outside of this, right? We still had to have that discussion, and I talked to somebody else about that as well, and they said the same thing. So we'll have to discuss that because one is better than the other. Clearly, it's not even close. It's not a discussion. And for the listeners out there, we'll get into that at some point here. But yeah, they're not even close, man. I don't even know what you're thinking. They're not even close. But yeah, guys, before we go as well, we appreciate everybody, coming onto the stream, listening to us, whether you're listening to us on a podcast or viewing us live. But before we go, instead of doing the intro, we're going to let DP know where you guys can find us at because it's really important for all new listeners as well.
Nerdcyclopedia.com. People, make sure that you're going on that site, getting all our links to all your favorite social media outlets that we are on: Facebook, Instagram, and also on Twitter at Nerdcyclopedia. Make sure that you are emailing us your comments or whatever that you want to talk about, nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com. Make sure that if you are watching us on YouTube or even on Facebook or just searching for us, period, you're subscribing to our channel, you're liking our page, you're joining our Facebook group, Carbonite Bounty BS, the Star Wars group, and basically just talking about Star Wars stuff. We love talking about this stuff, and you see how passionate we are, talking about this. We love to get your feedback and interact with you as well.
Good stuff. Like I said, guys, it's been another fun one. So before we go here, what are the thoughts? Where do we head next? I mean,
we're doing Rebels next.
Yeah,
Rebels. We're starting the haul.
Yes,
we are starting the haul.
Is next. So the with the first season is 12 episodes there on Team Mitch.
Yeah, something like that.
So
we'll have to break it down.
Yeah.
You want to do like speed sessions, like 6 and 6? I mean, I know we were doing it early. We were like doing mini chunks, and that took up 7 months. I mean, we can run it fairly quick. And some of these episodes aren't as long, so I think some of the runtimes would be 25 minutes. Some are a little longer because this is when it hit Disney XD, and you know how Disney has like weird time frames and when they were showing things and episode cuts. So, I mean, we can do 6 if you want.
The first season is 14, so let's do 7.
Yeah, we'll do 7 and 7.
Okay.
That's cool.
So good, fellas.
It is great, man.
Yeah, I'm hearing Rebels is the one. I'm hearing.
As I said, man, you will hear a lot of things. It's very I will say it becomes very Marvel-y, and you see the whole kind of, which is I like it, like the kind of Feige influence. You'll see it at the end, especially when we talk about what you're saying about universes and things like that. You'll find out how this kind of turns. So yeah, it's very, very, very. It's like it's a tale of two different halves, really. The first half of Rebels is one way, and then the second half of Rebels, you'll be like, it's a totally different show.
Oh, okay. So sort of like how Clone Wars was, starting off a little,
It does. I'll say that now. We'll get into it. The first couple, it's a head scratcher off the bat.
Okay.
First season.
I actually did catch a couple episodes when I was jonesing for more, stuff after Bad Batch. So I love the Filoni-verse feel of it still. So even though the animation isn't is fine tuned as what we just seen, with like the Bad Batch, it still has the story structure and everything. So I'm game. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Well, once again, thank everybody for tuning in, and until next week, guys, this is the way.
This is the way.
It's the way.